Bowen, and I'm one of the counselors here at Marshall High School. I have students with the last names A through H. Also, we have Ms. Evans in the back. She was greeting you out front by the literature. Make sure and stop and pick that up if you did not on your way in. Ms. Evans works here and also at MHS, our alternative school, and she has students with the last names I through M. Miss Greenfield has one of those bugs that's kind of going around. Hopefully it's not in your house, but she has the end of the alphabet N for Z, so she couldn't be with us tonight. So we're going to give you just a lot of information tonight on kind of what you need to look at as a student and the guidance as a parent that we're going to provide to the students in that junior, senior year to try to prepare them for life after high school. Just some options we're going to throw up there. We all know, the choices that students are facing, whether they're going to go to college, whether they're going to go into the workforce, into the service. Those are some of the options they have before them. I love this statement up here. We are right now preparing kids for their future, and we're using technology that's not yet been created, and some of these jobs don't exist. So it makes it challenging for the student and for the parent to try to figure out, what do you want to do after high school? It becomes a hard question. The big thing we really want to push for is that the students need to be the driving force in this. And that's hard, because as a parent, I know that's hard. There's many times I look at it with my own child and go, forget it, I'll just do it. It's quicker, it's easier, right? I know I can get the job done and do it right. But I have to kind of step back and remind myself that they need to learn how to do it, and they need to be that driving force, but we'll guide you through the process, either as a parent or as a school system. And then the big thing we talk to kids about from the moment they walk through this door as a freshman in high school is that you need some form of higher education beyond that high school diploma. That's the expectation, okay? Some kind of training. Even if you're going into the workforce, at some point, you're going to need some type of special training to be competitive in today and tomorrow's market. Just so you know, we do have a new program. If you have not been told yet by your child, we do have a new program called Ramp Up to Readiness. And this is a curriculum that was put together, kind of an initiative through the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And the objective is to prepare for the student for life after high school. Students go through about 30 minutes once a week of curriculum. They're separated by their age, so all 9th graders get one set of curriculum. Next year as a 10th grader, they're going to get different objectives in the curriculum, 11th grade and 12th grade and so on. So while there might be a little bit of repetition, they might start to touch base and talk a little bit about financial aid. In that sophomore year maybe, they might introduce it. They're going to hit it hard in that junior year. So it's all designed to take those steps necessary to make some progress towards plans after high school. And then all juniors do take a career class, so whether the student is in it semester 1 or takes it semester 2, a lot of these topics will be discussed or have been discussed in their career class as well. Here's just a little bit of information on class of 2013. I went on the Minnesota Office of Higher Education website to see if there was any newer data. They didn't have anything publicized other than this, but I anticipate it would be very, very close in proximity to these numbers. And when I look at this, and I've looked at this data for 15 years as a school counselor, and the big thing I see is the aspirations are not the issue. We've told them, you've told them, you need to go on to college. It's kind of, what does it take to get it done? And I think a lot of students don't know or underestimate what it takes to earn that college degree. 73% are looking at going to a 4-year university, yet the graduation rate in 4 years is 45%. Okay. When I went to college, most of us finished in 4 years or slightly over. now is running up in that 5-6 year range. Okay, so there's basically what we like to look at is a 4-step process too. How do you decide what you want to do after high school? I always tell students, in anything you do, try to break things down into small, manageable tasks. Then it doesn't seem as overwhelming. A lot of the times what I also find as a counselor is that students will come in and say, I know where I want to go to college. Well, that's great, but actually that's not really the first step in the process. The first step in the process is really assessing those interests and those values, what you like. And there's lots of interest inventory and personality tests online. There's some that they get here at school as well to kind of help them and direct them and figure out what do you like to do? What are you good at? Because we know if you look at what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and you put that into a career, you're much more likely to be successful in that career and stay in that career. And the most famous career theorists of all time have told us that for many years. That's the goal, that's the objective. Then we're going to look at tying some possible careers to those values and interests. And then we're going to look at researching those careers. And the website we have up here, MCIS, we call it MCIS, it's technically MNCIS. And in the ramp-up program, students have set up, I'm not sure about grade 9, but grade 11 has set up a login and ID. Okay, so they have that information. But if they've forgotten that, here's a general login and password that they can use to access MCIS. And what that is it's a wonderful, huge database that you can pull up careers and you can find out how much money you can expect to make, what the job outlook is like, what are some helpful high school classes for that application, which colleges have that major. And then you can link directly to that college's website and find out, well, what's their student body? What is their cost? What are some unique occupations? What classes do I have to take for this degree at that college? So it's just a wealth of information that is the best tool we know of to research colleges as well as some possible careers. Step 4 is just continuing to that process to look at the college. Okay, so I've identified maybe 3 different careers that I'm interested in, and now I'm going to look and see which colleges have that program. So then I can kind of go on to that next step of doing some college tours and figuring out, does this feel like a good fit for me? We do have, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we do have colleges come on campus, but I will say nothing will replace an actual on-campus tour. You just tend to sometimes, often get a sense of, is this a good fit for me, or is it not? Either way, it serves its purpose. So we strongly encourage you to visit them here, but also go to the campus and do an on-campus interview. So that first step, other thing I'll point out, job shadowing. We do have a lot of students who will go talk to someone in a career when they're looking at these careers. Go visit with someone. What do you like best about this occupation? What do you like least? How long have you done it? Get some more specific information. Even do a job shadow. Some occupations, because of data privacy, confidentiality, will prohibit that, but many of them will actually just sit down and allow within their capabilities to view and access some information through just sitting down and visiting with them. Choosing a college. We're going to come back and talk about choosing a college. The big thing I encourage my students to do is to make a smart decision. Not a perfect decision, but a smart decision. Because I think there's a lot of pressure on students, whether they put it on themselves or from wherever it's coming from, there's a lot of pressure to make a perfect decision. No one wants to 3 different possibilities of a major or a career by the time you enter your senior year, and then you start researching. Okay, I'm looking at maybe, let's say, education, business, and physical therapy. All 3 very different occupations. But if you can find 3 colleges that have all 3 of those majors, that's a smart decision. Okay? So then that just buys some time. Get those applications out, apply, get accepted, do some more research, go out and do some more shadowing, and kind of get some of that more information to mature a little bit, and figure out what you like a little bit more. That will kind of help, and that's what we mean by a smart decision, not a perfect decision. Because I think when they focus on a perfect decision, then they tend to make no decision. And that's the worst thing you can do. We do have, it gets a little costly. Some people will say, I have some students that fill out 2 college applications. I have some that fill out 1. I don't recommend 1. I say in anything in life, always have a backup plan. But I know it does get costly. They do have a college application week in the fall, and we just had it here in November. It's typically they've switched it the last couple of years, but it's typically in October or November, where students can then apply for free. So that's going to alleviate some of that cost. Any student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch would also qualify for a waiver at any time, not just during that window, so they should see their counselor or GM and student services. Otherwise, you're going to look at approximately $25 for a typical college application. Some of the more selective universities, some of the private universities might charge a slightly higher fee than that. And then once students start applying, they're going to need a copy of their transcript, and Jan can give that to students and student services. This is something we also start talking to students about early on is what does it take, what do you have to do in high school to get into college? Okay, so for a 2-year college, the big thing they want to see is have you graduated from high school, you earn that high school diploma. If you're looking at something, let's say a computer science degree, then we tell the students, you're going to want to have some math, and you're going to want to have some computer classes in high school. Okay? For a 4-year college, they're going to look at this information right here that you've completed in high school. And I would say the biggest 2 are those top 2 pieces. If a student does not have a 21 on their ACT, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the ACT in the upcoming slide, that would give them what we call a deficiency. If they are not in the top half of their class, that would give them what's called a deficiency. Any one of those give a deficiency. And what we say is having 1 deficiency does not necessarily keep you out of college. Okay? But the more you get, the harder it's going to be. So this is our goal. This is what we're shooting for. If you want to get that 4-year degree, you want these requirements here. And the 3 years of math, that's been there for a number of years. This is a MINSCU, a Minnesota public higher education system. The University of Minnesota Twin Cities, for example, is different. That's not part of the MINSCU system. So that's going to be different requirements. And that can vary based on what college within like the University of Minnesota Twin Cities you would attend. Okay? So there's the College of Education at the U of M. There's the College of Business, there's the College of Science, and so forth. The specific ACT required and so forth can vary based on which college. Okay? The math, the U of M is at 4 years. It's been 3 years for quite a while. I don't think in the next year or 2, but I would be surprised, a little bit more down the road if we don't look at seeing some change eventually there. And then the other question I get a lot is the world language. So that would be your Spanish, whatever language, Spanish is what we have here, but whatever language the student has seen keep students out as much as like the ACT and the rank. Here's more on the ACT. So the ACT is a college entrance exam. It's a national test. And we do have some changes for the Minnesota Department of Education that it's now tied to a graduation requirement. All this is starting to trickle down, okay? So as we're finding out information from the Minnesota Department of Education, we're passing that along to you. This is what we know as of right now. We know that every junior will take the ACT. The test date will be on April 28th, and I put page 17 because in that junior planning guide with the red cover on there, just a wealth of information in there. I would encourage student parents to sit and kind of read through that carefully. But a lot of information on the ACT on page 17. All juniors will test right here on April 28th at Marshall High School. You do not need to register online for that ACT test. Okay, so that's going to give the student who plans on going to a four-year college a free test, and that will be able to report to the four-year college. Okay, the one exception that we're having a little bit of discussion with the Department of Ed that has not quite come down yet, if the student is on an IEP, which is an individual education plan, and they receive assistance in school, if they have accommodations for that they use on the test, that's where we're not quite sure. Okay? And we'll pass that along to get to that. Our goal is really, we're going to recommend to you that if you plan on going to a four-year college, you take that ACT twice prior to that start of that senior year. We like students to have two opportunities to test. We find that that first time we're a little nervous. We're not used to taking a time standardized test. And so we kind of need a couple, sometimes 3 opportunities to test and kind of get a feel for it. Timing is a big part of that ACT. It's not just content. So I tell students, sit with a timer. Math, for example, there's 60 questions and 60 minutes. Where are you at that 30-minute mark? You have to manage your time well. You can't spend too much time on one test. You have to jump ahead and hit those ones that you know. Okay? So a large part of that is kind of test-taking strategies. So we do offer a study session here at the high school for students prior to taking that April ACT. This year, we're going to have 2 days. It's going to be during the school day. Okay? It's right here. There's going to be other schools, not just Marshall High School students, that will be here in the theater. And they'll be doing the study session as well. April 15th and April 22nd are the dates we have. When we get some more specific, because there's a lot of other schools involved, and we get more specific information coming up here soon, we'll be passing that along to the students and parents as well. It's nothing that you're going to have to register for that or the actual test. Okay. If a student retests, which many do, they always take that highest score. That's a common question we get. Okay? And the other question we get is, what if, sometimes for scholarships, they might look at one subject of the test. So there's math, reading, science, and English. They might be looking for a scholarship or for what college level math test you're going to take as a freshman in college. They might be looking at that math score, for example. On one test, it could be, let's say, a 21, and on another test, it might be an 18. Okay? And some colleges are willing to look at multiple tests and kind of mix and match and kind of pull out what they can to make sure and access that best score. We do offer fee waivers also, so once again, if a student qualifies for free and reduced lunch, make sure and see your counselor. Well, we're going to take care of, or the state of Minnesota is going to take care of that April 28th ACT test. if a student, let's say, wants to test in February or later on, I'm going to post these dates coming up here, they would have to register online, they would have to pay for that, but if they qualify for that free reduced lunch, we can give that waiver for it. Writing tests, we get that question a lot. I find very few colleges in Minnesota require that. If you go to actstudent.org, there's a section that says writing, and you can pull up by state, so any or across the nation, if they require that writing test or not. So I would certainly look at that before you pay for it and make sure it's needed. These are those test dates for the ACT. One thing I will point out with the February test date is that it tends to conflict with speech. So if anyone's involved in speech, kind of put that in the back of your mind and kind of check that date out. A common, I would say, would be April and June for a lot of students. I think if you take it sometimes too soon and you haven't had the math and you haven't had the English, then it can be a little bit more challenging. But each student is different. If the student is taking a little bit more advanced math classes, for example, then they'll probably be okay. And the thing that surprises people is the math, because people think, okay, I haven't been in pre-calc or I haven't been in trig. And if you look at the content, which is posted on ACT's website, as well as we have in student services, a lot of algebra, a lot of geometry, okay? Very little trig. I think trig is listed at like 5%, 10% at the most. Okay. The registration deadlines are up here for the actual test as well. And I just put a note on there. Students would register at actstudent.org except for the April 28th test date here. And then there is a 2-week window after that registration deadline. So for example, on the January 9th registration deadline, you see that date there for the February 7th test. There's a 2-week window after that, so about January 10th to the 20-something, where you can register still for the test, but you're going to pay a pretty sizable late fee for that. So I encourage you to register sooner rather than later. Sometimes students will say something comes up, you can always push the test date back. They won't give a refund once you've registered, but they'll allow you usually to do a test date that's within a certain window. Scholarships is a big question we get. And a lot of them are written for seniors, but we do have some that come across for juniors as well. We do post on our website all local scholarships that come to us, and it's the Marshall K-12 and then EDU. You go to the high school page, and on the left-hand side of the page, you're going to see a link to student services, and then on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the scholarships, and it's posted right there with the deadline, all the information. I strongly encourage students to check that regularly. I strongly encourage students to build a resume. And I would suggest putting it in an Excel document. The common things that they're going to ask for on those scholarships are what activities have you been involved in, what kind of leadership positions, awards, honors, recognition, how many hours of community service. And if we can put that by grade, so list grade 9, 10, 11, 12, list the activities, list the honors, and then list the hours. And then that's going to help the student. It's like a resume. You add to it as you go along. Rather than reinventing the wheel each time a scholarship comes up, it really allows the student to be able to tweak it and kick those scholarship applications out quick and fast and apply for more. So I would suggest starting to work on that as a junior as well. These are some common websites that we like for scholarships. We do have a sheet out on the table too that lists those. Some of the common ones we know. Be very careful. There's lots of scams out there. I think about 3-4 years ago, There was someone that came in, went to one of the hotels here in town, had invited all the seniors and their parents to come in. We'll find you a scholarship, get your checkbook out. You know, for a charge of $75, we'll guarantee to find you a scholarship. How much? And how can they guarantee it? That's a red flag. Never pay for someone to find a scholarship for you. Never pay to apply for a scholarship. If you're ever questioning it, just bring it into us and we'll take a look at it. The Pride and Tiger is a big one that will come up in the senior year, and that typically comes up in about February. We meet with the students, give them all the information, quick and easy application. We're very fortunate in this community. We gave out a lot of money last year to the seniors, and we're pretty lucky that we were able to do that with the generosity of people in the community. Financial aid. We just sat through a financial aid meeting before this with the seniors. Their heads are all spinning. But we'll just give you a preview here. We typically do a meeting in December, January time frame. We're pretty lucky to have an excellent partnership with the university across the highway there. And the director of financial aid from there comes and spends a good hour giving parents a lot of helpful information. So I strongly encourage you to attend that in that student senior year. Things change every year, but he'll talk to you and the child about how do you file for financial aid and what are some of the different types of grants, loans, and so forth that we need to look at. I highly encourage families to look at work study if they qualify for that as an option. That's an excellent award if you can do that. There is an official website listed on here because there is, I believe it's ed.com or something. It charges you like $75 to do a free application. And the problem is I've had students come in and they've done it, and they get to the end and it asks for the credit card. And they said, Mrs. Bowen, I couldn't start over, I just paid it, you know? So make sure you're on the right website because they will charge it and it's a free application. This is the correct website there. And we strongly encourage early application for many reasons, not just the funding, but also the planning to help you know, okay, this is what I need to do. This is about, you know, the costs I need to come up with. There are some early in your red booklet, it talks about an early estimator that you can go online and you can go estimate how much maybe my expected family contribution would be. And David, the director of financial aid over across the SMSU, has told me it's pretty reliable. So, you know, feel free to check that out. It's a great tool. To the students, I would remind them, do well in all your classes. Everything counts. Your freshman, sophomore, and junior year grades get you into college or not. Your senior year grades keep you there. Okay? So do your best. Take those rigorous classes. Okay? I know that's hard because some students will say, but I know I can get an A here, and I want that A, right? Colleges look at not just the grades you're earning, but the classes you're taking. Challenge yourself. We don't want to see students taking remedial classes in college, which is going to increase their time and their cost. Challenge yourself now, so you better prepare yourself for college. Study before taking the ACT. That's a big one. Okay, a lot of students don't study. Study, and it'll go much better that first time. One thing I think I forgot to mention with that ACT is a lot of students will take it again as a senior, 2-3 times even. But our goal is to take it a couple times to get the score we want, that 21, to get into college. Then that senior year, we're maybe trying to retest to get a better score for some scholarships. Okay? So sometimes the college might say, okay, you have a 22, but at a 24, and this rank, or this GPA, we can offer you X amount of dollars for college. Well, it's worth the $35 cost of that ACT test. to try to bump up and get some potential scholarship dollars. The researching of the colleges and the careers is very time consuming. And I think it overwhelms the students. But I like to say, it's like anything else in life. What you put into it is what you get out of it. So if you put very little into it, you'll probably get very little return. But on the contrary, if you put a lot into it, you're going to get a lot out of it. Okay? And you're going to be a lot happier. And you're going to be a lot less stressed the more you do now as a junior, and that some of you for that senior year, than when you're sitting in Mrs. Bowen's office as a senior and you're in tears because you have no idea where you're going to go to school, what you're going to do, and that stress just starts really wearing you down. Okay? So the more you do now, the better prepared you'll feel. We will do a junior next year seniors registration meeting. We will give students the information. We'll talk about taking some of those more rigorous classes. We open up the door that senior year to taking a lot more AP and more challenging classes as well. So we'll be having that coming up here in probably about late January, early February. We're just now kind of working with the calendar, so that information will be coming out that last year of registration. I always tell students, if you don't get a class that you register for, come and see your counselor right away, okay, in that summer. And then we'll see what we can do manually. Because sometimes the computer, they're smart, right? But sometimes manually we can flip things around. And we need to know what your priorities are as a student. The computer can't tell that. If you have two classes you registered for, they're single sections, and they're both in the same spot, it does not know how to prioritize. So we need to kind of have those discussions. So please come in and meet with your counselor. The other thing up there I see is realistic goals. Looking at and seeing, I have students sometimes say, I want to be a nurse. Okay, I wanted to be a nurse when I was in high school. I did a job shadow in Sioux Falls. They inserted a tube down someone's throat. He was gagging, crying, and I ended up with my head between my knees, breathing through a brown paper bag. So sometimes things happen for a reason. I found out that was not the career for me. But I was on the right path, right? I wanted to be in a helping profession, but just not the bodily fluids. So you just sometimes need a little bit of guidance, and you need some of those experiences to kind of direct you in the right way, but also be realistic. If you don't like science and you don't like math, nursing is probably not for you. Okay, we have to kind of help the student kind of think through some of those things and ask those questions as well. Okay, this is hard to read, I apologize. It's just that this college is very expensive, but when you graduate, they give you a diploma, a house, a car, a wife, kids, and a dog. Okay, so at this point, I will open up to any large group questions you have. Ms. Evans and I are going to stay afterwards as well, so that if you have any questions you don't want to ask in a large group, we'll certainly stay and ask them in a more private setting. But if you have a question, go ahead and shout it out if you have a question for the whole group. It's the end of the day, so I know I can't be super clear, right? Okay, well,